Okay, good morning. It's Wednesday, Pashas Bahar B'Chikosai, and yesterday we counted the 36th day of the Omer. Double Chai, exactly. We have 13 days left to count, and then on the 14th day will be Shiur's. Today's Shiur will be basically I will tell you two stories. One of them will be fictional and one will be non-fictional. Let's start with first a little Dvar Torah. In last week's Parsha, we spoke about. I'm just going to stall another second because I see a couple of people coming in. Okay. Good morning. So in last week's Parsha, we spoke about the various holidays and the various sacrifices you bring in the holidays. And
Eddie, you want to come here?
And the Torah talks about Pesach and Shavuos, and then there is one line in the Torah that talks about something else. And afterwards, it talks about the other holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And it talks about these holidays and what sacrifices you bring to the temple. But in between this, right in the middle, there's one verse that actually has nothing to do with the holidays. And I'll read it to you. And I always like to say that no matter how many times I read the same Torah, like it's such an obvious question. It talks about Pesach, you bring this, and Shavuos, this, and then there's one pasuk that when you cut your field, there are three special things that you have to do mitzvahs when you cut your field that have to do with poor people. One of them is that you leave over a corner for the poor person. The one of them is that if you're cutting your stalks and they fall on the floor, you leave it for the poor person. And also if you make mounds, bales of wheat or something, and you forget one, you bring it into your house and you forget one, you leave that. And then right away it goes that one verse, and right away it goes into the next thing of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Sukkot. So why this verse right in the middle? I know you guys are all troubled by this, so I'm not going to keep you in suspense. So actually, the holy commentator, Rashi, jumps on this right away, and he says, he didn't come to the Shiur, but he knew this question on his own, and he gives an answer, and he says, he brings down from a brisa, he brings down that whoever leaves over these things for a poor person, whoever is considerate and cares for these poor person, it's as if, and even better than if you brought the sacrifices to the holy temple and you came up to visit Yerushalayim on the holidays and to bring these things. It's even better to do that.
The concept of Pesach, they say, the ani come eat, like the same thing.
Okay, so at Pesach, Benny says that at Pesach we're also inviting poor people, but why is it even more than coming up to Jerusalem, bringing your sacrifices, doing the services at the Holy Temple? Why would that not be the greatest thing in the world? Why giving a poor person a stalk of wheat? Why is that?
Because you're helping that poor person.
So obviously, because you're helping. Well, even if it's not the holiday.
With that?
Well, maybe, yes. Ari is saying that you're providing the poor person the opportunity to have a joyous holiday. But still really doesn't sound like, like giving a poor person, like a poor person comes into shul and you give him a quarter, why is that better than bringing a sacrifice? So the answer is, so I'll tell you a story. You missed the beginning, but basically I'm going to tell two stories. One is fictional, one is non-fictional today. So there was once a king who lived in a palace, and he had a beautiful castle, and it was amazing. But he had gotten it from his father when his father was king, and throughout the generations, these castles, they go for hundreds of years. So once a man comes to this king and says, you know what, I'm a multi-millionaire, I'm going to build you a brand new one. So he gives him $50 million, builds a brand new castle, and it's magnificent. The king every day goes on the veranda by the castle and looks out at the masses overlooking his townspeople. They're all lined up.
At the pool too?
Excuse me?
Pool? At the pool?
All kinds of people. It's a story.
Yeah, just go with
You
it.
want it to be
Just
poor?
go with it.
They're poor.
Pool, not a pool. Swimming.
Oh, a pool. Yes. Yeah, there wasn't before, but now we just put one in. They just created it. We put an indoor-outdoor pool, jacuzzi, hot tub, and sliding for the kiddies. There was everything. Anybody else wants anything? Landscaping. It was gorgeous. But people would line up to see this magnificent castle, and the king would go out there and just look at these lines every single day. One day the king is looking out at these lines, and he sees somebody there. He tells this millionaire, who's now his best buddy, and he tells him, this guy who paid for the castle became like real close with the king. And the king always told him, if there's anything you need, you're a millionaire, you don't really need that, but if there's anything I can do for you, I'll do for you. And throughout the years, the king would do him a favor here and there, no big thing. But on this particular day, he looks out and he says, you see that guy over there, maybe 500 feet back on line, he's wearing a red shirt, and he's wearing a Dodger baseball cap, and whatever. He says, call him, I want to speak to him. So this guy's a little dumbfounded. The guy was standing there. He looked like, a peasant, but king tells him to call the guy, so he calls him. So brings the guy into the castle. The king says to him, how are you, sir? Let me ask you something. What can the king, do for you? So he's an old man. He says, you know what? I'm a little embarrassed to ask you, but I live in a little town, and I have a little shack that I live in, and they're planning to build a new highway to cut across exactly where my house is. So they're going to be throwing down my house, and they'll pay me, they'll compensate me. They're going to build me another house a mile away, so it's not next to the highway. But I'm an old man, and I like my house, and I'm used to it, and I know where everything is. Maybe the king can do something about it. So the king says, okay, let me meet with my cabinet. And the king goes into the back room, comes out in a little while, and he says, problem solved. This is your house, we're going to build a bridge. The highway's going to go, and the bridge is going to go right over your house and come out later. We won't touch your house. We'll do this for you. The guy goes, wow, you're going to do that for me? He says, yeah. He says, great. But the king goes, but? What do you mean, but? He says, well, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you this, but like I said, I'm an old man, and they're going to be building a bridge over my house. The noise, 24/7, they're going to be knocking and banging, and, I'm not going to be able to sleep. So the king says, okay, I hear what you're saying. Let me figure something out. He goes back into the room, meets with his cabinet, with the supervisor, and comes back. He says, problem solved. What we're going to do is we're going to, like a mile before your house, we're going to build a tunnel 500 feet under your house. That's where the highway is going to continue. Come out a mile later. No, you will not hear a thing. It'll be insulated. No noise, no nothing. Keep your house. Problem solved. The guy can't believe it. He says, you're really going to do this? Wow, unbelievable. But what? But what? So he says, well, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you this, but you see, I have very little in life. The only thing I have is I like to go down in my basement. That's the lowest part of the house. And I meditate there, and this is my private space. And I have also a little wine collection, which the temperature is just perfect there, because this is the lowest part of the atmosphere over there. And I'm afraid, first of all, psychologically, if I know there's things underneath me, I won't feel like so private. And also it may affect the temperature of the wine. So, so the king says, okay, let me see what I can do. Goes back into the room. I mean, most of us would have shot this guy already by now, right? So the king goes back into his room, comes out, he says, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build a highway, we're going to go a mile that way, we're going to turn the highway, we're going to go there, we're going to come back, we're going to go around. We'll have a radius of 1 mile. The highway is just going to circumvent your whole house, and no noise, nothing, you're good. So the guy thanks the king. He says, wow, unbelievable. You're really a great king, and leaves. This friend of the king who's there, he says, let me ask you something, Your Majesty. He says, I gave you $50 million or $50 billion to build this castle. Okay, you do me favors here and there. But what did this guy ever do? I can't believe what you're doing for this guy. What did he ever do for you? So he says to the guy, I'll tell you what. Let me tell you a story. The king tells the guy, 10 years ago, my son, who likes to hunt, went hunting. And he went out into the forest, and he was hunting and camping, and got to be dark, so he was there with his horse and carriage. He camped out for the night and went to sleep. When he woke up in the morning, 2 feet of snow had fallen, and he couldn't budge that horse and carriage out of the place, and he was stuck there. He was 20 miles away from any civilization because he used to go deep into the forest, and he didn't have enough food because he had planned to go back the next day. He had no food, he had no water, couldn't do anything, and he was destined to die. So he started dredging himself in the snow, and he was walking, and he was already at the end. He had no strength left. He hadn't eaten, he hadn't slept, and he finally sees from a distance, he sees a little town, a couple of houses. So he manages to crawl across and knock on the door, and he's hardly speaking, and he tells the guy, knocks on the door, the guy opens up, says, can I help you? He says, yeah, I'm dying. I need, give me something, give me some soup, give me some water, I'm freezing. So the guy says, look, I'd be more than happy to help you, but it's 2 a.m. I got my family sleeping. I can't really disrupt my whole thing, but there's a guy across the street. He's a good guy. He'll help you. So he goes across the street and he knocks on the door, and the guy opens up and says, can I help you? And he says, tells him what happened. He says, sure, come on in. Comes in and gives him some water right away and sits him down, puts some towels around him, and after a little while he brings him out some hot soup, and the guy's coming to himself, and after he's back a little bit to normal, he brings out some fresh clothing, gets him out of his wet clothing, gives him a hot bath, tells him to makes a nice bed for him. Guy wakes up in the morning, he's a new person. And he walks over to the guy, he says, how can I ever repay you? He says, you don't have to repay me. It's no big thing. He had no idea it was the king's son. So he said, well, let me at least pay you for what you give me, the food and this and that. He said, don't make yourself ridiculous. It was $1.50, I'm not going to take your money. So he thanked him again and left. He came home and he told his father, the king, this story. And the father says, who was he? He says, I'll tell you the truth, I don't even know. He said, well, did you at least pay him? He says, he refused to take the money. So he says, no, we don't work this way. You go back to the guy, you pay him back, and get a picture of him. So his father tells him, says in the Torah, you got to listen to your father. So he goes back to the guy and pays him. The guy didn't want to take the money, but he convinced him he must take. He says, my father told me I have to give it to you. And he takes a picture for him. And he comes back and he gives it to his father. So now the king tells his friend, he says, you see, every single day I come out here, I'm looking for this guy. I'm hoping to find him one day. He saved my son's life. And today, I saw him online. And that's why. Yes, you built me a castle. But the truth is I had a castle. And though I really need a castle, I have all the money in the world. I can buy and do anything. I'm king. It's good to be king, right? He says, okay, it's nice. You did it for me. Fine. You're honoring me. People come here and honor me. But the truth is I don't need all this. I have everything I want in life. He says, but when somebody takes care of my children, somebody took care of my son, that to me is worth more than anything else. And that's what the Torah is teaching us. Yeah, we make a temple, a holy temple for Hashem. Does he really need it? He doesn't need it. Does he need the sacrifices? He does not need the sacrifices. But it's nice. It's a mitzvah. You come up, you do something for Hashem, you show your Hakaras Hatov, it's good. But it's really more for us than for him. But when somebody takes care of Hashem's children, for the ones that can't take care of themselves, the poor person, that's worth more than all the sacrifices that you bring. Okay. So, I have one more interesting thing that happened. I'll just say it very quickly. Just to show, something happened this weekend in Staten Island, which like amazed me so much. I thought I would share it with everybody. That there was a guy that he has a day camp in the Poconos, and he was traveling from the Poconos. He wanted to get to Crown Heights for Shabbos, and there was something going on this weekend in Jersey area. He got on. He was about a mile from the Holland Tunnel. I don't know if you guys know that whole area, but he was stuck in traffic. He gave himself. He knew the trip usually takes him 2 hours. He gave himself 4 hours. So now he's stuck in the Holland Tunnel. He's at a standstill, but he still has 2 hours to Shabbos. An hour goes by. He didn't move 20 feet. So he doesn't know what to do. He calls the state police in his car, and he explains to them the situation. He's a Sabbath observer. He says, if I'm going to be stuck here on Shabbos, I have to leave my car here. Why don't you come and get some kind of an escort and get me at least off the road? So they're not equipped for that. They couldn't do anything for him. So now he doesn't know what to do, and he figures he'll go as far as he can, and when Shabbos comes, he'll park the car and leave. Wherever it is. He wound up right by the toll booth. He had 3 minutes left. He asked the toll booth guy, am I going to get across the tunnel? Because at least he would wind up in Manhattan. From there, he figured he'd walk to Crown Heights. So, will I be able to cross it in 3 minutes? The guy laughed at him. He says, it's been taking about an hour to cross the tunnel. So, he pulls into the side over there, like if they pull you over by the tunnel to give you a ticket or something. There's a little parking lot, not parking lot, but a roped off area. He pulls in there, and he figures he'll leave the car there. Police comes over to him and says, what are you doing? So he explains to the police the story. He's Jewish. So the guy says to him, I don't know what you're talking about. He calls the supervisor. The supervisor comes, and the supervisor goes, can't leave your car there. So he says, but you don't understand my religion, I'm Jewish. He says, my wife is Jewish also. I don't know anything about this. So right away, he's a Lubavitcher. He hears somebody's wife is Jewish. He jumps on the opportunity. And he says to him, if your wife is Jewish, your children are Jewish. So the other cop starts ribbing him, your kids are Jewish. They have a whole conversation. Meanwhile, another minute is going by. He's down to 2 minutes. The guy says, look, you can't leave it here. I sympathize with you, but you can't leave it here. What am I going to do? So he says, well, what if I tell you that the car is stolen? So I can't move it. You'll tow it somewhere, and I'll pick it up after Shabbos. So he says, if you tell us it's stolen, then we're going to handcuff you and arrest you. So he didn't know what to do, and they were giving him a hard time. He figures, you know what? I don't have a choice. he got lucky. He saw another non-Jew walking, and he convinces this non-Jew to drive the car a block away somewhere on an abandoned street and leave the car there. So he does that, and he locks everything in his car, takes the keys. Across the street was a gas station, and he walks into the gas station and he tells the guy, "Can you hold my keys until tomorrow night?" He says, "I'm not taking anything. If you want, you can throw it in the closet there." So the guy lets him throw the keys in the closet. He walks back to the tunnel and he says, "I'm going to walk across the tunnel." Can't walk across the tunnel. So then he goes to the other side where the cars are coming out from Manhattan. He figures maybe he'll go against traffic, and he'll convince a cop there. So the cop over there doesn't let him walk across either. So he says, "What am I going to do? This and this." So he says, "Well, the only way you can do it is you can walk to the Bayonne Bridge and walk across the Bayonne Bridge, and from there you can find your way." So he goes to the he has directions how to get to the Bayonne Bridge. So you can't walk on the highway, so they had to take him through Jersey City. So it took him 6 hours to walk from the Holland Tunnel to the Bayonne Bridge. And when he got to the Bayonne Bridge, he asked the lady, "How do I get to the Verrazano Bridge? I want to cut across to Brooklyn." She tells him, you can't walk. You can walk across the Bayonne Bridge, but you can't walk across the Verrazano Bridge. No walking allowed since 9/11. He explains to her the story. He says, "Look, I'm Jewish." And she goes, "You're Jewish? My mother was Jewish." So right away, your mother was Jewish, that means you're Jewish. And he starts talking about his kids. And she says, "Okay, let me see what I can do for you." She calls the police at the Verrazano Bridge, explains the story. They almost let him walk. They said, "No, we're not going to be able to let him walk." So he's stuck there. So he started walking from the Bayonne Bridge. He got to a 24-hour deli type of place. So he walked in and he asked the guy, "Where is there Jews around there?" So the guy told him, "Well, there's Jews all over. This is Staten Island now, over the Bayonne Bridge. There's Jews all over, but I don't know exactly where." And now it's 2 or 3 in the morning. So the guy says, "Why don't you stay here until it's light outside?" So he sat down on a chair there. The guy wants to give him coffee and everything, but it's Shabbos. So he can't give him anything. So he took water. He took a cup of water, and he had that, and he was sitting there. I asked him, "Did you sleep?" He says, "No, I couldn't sleep." So when it got light outside, he started walking, and he kept asking where there's Jews. Finally, he started at 5 or 6 in the morning. At 10 o'clock, he arrived in my shul in Staten Island. Walks in, and so he comes in, and that's where I meet him for the first time. And I ask him, "What do you think his first question to me was?" His first question to me was, "Where can I get a kapata? I want to daven." He didn't ask for food. He didn't ask for a drink. He wanted to make sure that he has a long jacket, the way the Lubavitchers wear to daven. That was the only thing on his mind. So we didn't have one. So I told him where there were Lubavitchers that live over there, and he found his way to a house that gave him a kapata to daven. He davened. Saturday night, I told him I'll give him a ride back to Jersey City. So I'm gonna cut the story short because it's very late. So I took him. So we needed a few miracles. First of all, we needed a miracle that the car should still be there. You can't believe where the car was. I mean, it was 1,000,000 to 1 shot that they shouldn't break it in. He had his wallet and everything. And then you needed another 1,000,000 to 1 shot that those keys were still in the closet there. But everything worked out, and he got home safely. And then I just asked him, when I dropped him away, I said, "Do you happen to know the Rappaports in Atlantic City?" He goes, "Avram Rappaport?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I was his head counselor in camp." So he doesn't know the story yet, but I'm going to tell it. Okay.